Welcome back, everybody, to the Pair of Kings podcast. I'm your host, Saul Thompson. You can find me on Instagram at Saul Thompson. And I'm joined this week not only by my wonderful co-host.
I'm Michael Smith. You can find me on Instagram at @_Smithstagram.
But this week by a very special guest. It's none other than Michael Fang of Wenjüe Lu. We are in his studio, I guess him and his partner's studio. He's very gracious to have us. Michael, how are you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, it's nice that you guys having me here at our own studio. And this is Michael Fang. I'm one half of Studio Wenjüe Lu. You can find me on Instagram on @cannedjunk.
Nice.
You have a great @ And then Wenjüe Lu is just WENJUE.
Yes.
Is there an underscore?
WENJUELU.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if there was an underscore. Cool. But thank you so much to everybody for joining us. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow the page. And if you are listening to this, either on Spotify or your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to follow the podcast and leave us a review. It really helps. Anyway, how is everybody today? Now that the admin is out of the way.
Now that we've got all the boring stuff out of the way. We've been trying to do this for a while. We've been looking forward to this for a while. Since Komune, because
that was 6 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So you were stalked at Komune, and we...
Can't believe it's been so long since
I know, it's been a while.
It's something else now.
I know, I saw that. It's like a Comme des Garçons.
Yeah, but it's got like a...
Sacrilegious.
It's got like a pun name. It's like come day fuck down, but I don't know what it actually says. It's like come on in or something, but with COMME.
Nice.
It's something like that.
Sellers. I pour wine all over my new shirt. That's great.
Classic.
I love that for me.
Some natural dye.
Yeah.
Got the wine stain Lacoste.
Yeah. I mean, all right.
What's up?
I can take that to a dry cleaner later, even though Michael hates dry cleaners. That sucks.
They're not real. Dry cleaners aren't real.
Damn. 2 minutes in, I got to deal with that for the entire episode. Fuck. Okay.
Saul's had 3 sips of wine. He is out.
Yeah.
We should do a fit check.
We should.
Tell me about your wine stained outfit.
Yeah, so the wine stained shirt I just got yesterday. So happy that it's already wine stained. It is an old vintage Lacoste polo that I got from my very nice friend Enrique. He's over at Fine and Dandy. I think this store is Throwback, but on Instagram it's Archives. I'm wearing some R.M. Williams boots, some striped gold jeans, and a cardigan that I designed with... it's at Ribbed for Your Pleasure, and it's got a water tower on the back from Hilla and Burned Bescher.
Oh, we can finally show people.
Yeah,
this.
right? Isn't that crazy?
We've been talking about it for so long.
So it's my favorite photography series. It's like post-war industrial. Great. I'm just breaking everything today. Post-war industrial Germany, and they basically took photos of industrial structures, whether it be grain silos or water towers, or I think they did playgrounds as well, if I'm not mistaken, and then facades of old houses. But took them as if they were portraits, which I thought was really interesting, very striking. One of my favorite photography series. It's BESCHER, I believe. Bescher. Yeah, but wonderful, and I'm very happy that she made it for me. Should I go into what I was wearing as well? Because there was a lot more.
Yeah, sure. It's winter now. It's cold. We'll do the. Give me a full rundown.
Okay, so I had a sample Raf Calvin coat that was from the unreleased last runway before he got axed. And then a pair of fishing gloves. I had a scarf and then a beanie that my sister gave me like 2 years ago for Hanukkah, which is super cool.
One day I'm going to wear so many layers that we never actually get to the podcast.
I'm going to wear like 15 next time.
Yeah. Yeah, you should have stocked up on layers because this is going to be the whole podcast.
Yeah. You can go through every chains and accessories.
Oh, yeah. I'll go link by link on this chain.
Yeah, you're going link for link right now?
Going link for link. You ever gone link for link?
Run us through it, Michael.
I'll do a quick rundown.
Yeah.
Balenciaga Trooper boots, Ludan, big old 70s bell-bottom jeans, a bright yellow Balenciaga campaign shirt because Saul complains that I never wear color.
You very rarely do.
So we're doing light colors today. I fucked it up with a black turtleneck.
Yeah.
And then I have a big gray coat.
Nice.
And then I've got so we've got on this finger.
Do the standout pieces for you.
Yeah.
So that I get some context.
Okay. Yeah. My favorite piece of jewelry I am currently wearing, is a little guy.
A little guy.
Not a Wenjüe Lu little guy, which you have on. We kind of have matching little guys.
That little guys. The meeting of the little guys.
Y'all ever see the little guys like that? This is made by my friend in Arizona. His Instagram name is Tartar Yar. Yeah, and then a big old chain from this guy Ripper Chains on Instagram.
Ripper Chains is crazy.
Chains. Fiona got me that for
It's bomb
my
ass
birthday.
handle.
Nice.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael?
Give us the run through.
Give us the full run through. I love your shoes. I think they're what? Visvim Christos?
This is Sweet Coke.
Sweet Coke. Fuck.
This is like, I thought this was just a special collab or something, but it got this, like Native American, like, the vibes. But then I thought it's like, oh, maybe they're collaborating with either some Japanese brands or Native American brand. But no, they kind of just came out with this style. So I'm like, yeah, I don't have to pay, collab price. I can just match it. Kind of goes with the color tone that we've been doing with Wenjüe Lu. So I'm wearing like head to toe Wenjüe Lu. The bottom is a sample from the latest like annual collection 2023. This is called wavy pants. So you can kind of see like every seams right here. None of them are like straight. So overall they create like a flowy wavy effect. And then this underneath is like my tops are all from our first collection, collection 2022. So this inside is a tank top on the very inside, just like your basic Hanes, and then outside layer with this like almost translucent, really like a tightly woven but kind of thin cotton long sleeve shirt. And then this is from collection 2022, and outside got this jacket from also collection 2022. This is a wrong lapelled jacket, and then you can kind of see the mismatched lapel. But the fabric itself is kind of like it's from like the southern part of China, from this like ethnic minority called the Dong people, D-O-N-G. Shout out to the Dong women, because the Dong women for generations, they be like from scratch making the fabrics and then making the garments. They would dress their entire family. By the age of 18, they need to learn to do all that.
You get a lot of your fabrics from them, right? You were wearing, when Michael and I first met, we went for coffee, it was pouring rain. I don't know if it was that jacket behind me. I don't know if the camera can see it. But you were wearing like a long...
fattest jacket right there, right?
Yeah. But
that was just basic muslin, because the one I was wearing is also muslin samples.
Got it.
But we try to use like the definition of muslin, kind of borrow it a little bit and try to like do our own little twist. So basically, we kind of turn our entire sourcing philosophy around what is a muslin. It's like unbleached, undyed cotton that people so overlook as like, just draft paper for fashion majors, so that people don't get to appreciate the beauty it is as actually just natural, this beige off-white color, no pun intended, you kind of just get straight from the actual plant.
Yeah, but I was also going to say, he came in, obviously our Michael Smith was not there, but he had come in from the rain, and you could see the rain sort of soaking up the sleeves and discoloring, which was really cool. And I asked him, I was like, wouldn't that destroy the jacket itself? Like, does that upset you? And he was like, no, it's the way it's supposed to be. I actually enjoy like getting it wet and having it look different, and it sort of absorbing the color, which I really like.
Because from even just water, you get water stains. Yeah. And on like, really? Transparent, like almost like an off-white fabric that's really light and natural, the water stain kind of comes off as like a brownish red color, almost brownish orange. Yeah. And then with like, this wavy ripple effect across where the stuff that's wet, the entire silhouette of it. So it's like almost the same energy. I was like, now you have to like almost dip the entire polo shirt in wine now, just do the natural dye, go all the way through. So like, that's always my, philosophy and our philosophy with garments. You kind of just like, it's like a Vans sneaker. You have to wear the fuck out of it. Yeah. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go crazy.
I'm relieved.
My mom listens, and you will have to answer to her. But other than that, you're fine.
Yeah, I can answer all questions. Let's bring it on.
This does bring up a question that I had the second I saw you, which is, are you a very careful person? Because if I was wearing this outfit, it would be covered in like coffee and like peanut butter and jam. Like, I'm horrible at not spilling on anything. Is this like a concern?
I think this is almost like in retrospect, right now we're like appreciating the so-called like dirty look, the muddy looks. Like people would like idolize that Balenciaga show in the swamp, in the oil swamp. But then it's for us, it's always like we love to do pants that's like so long, it kind of drags to the floor, and then just on the concrete floor, you kind of just like rhythm and let it do its thing. Right? Yeah. Wherever you walk, you like kind of create a path with your pants and kind of document that memory with kind of every step. So that rain, I can see the water stain. Remember, I was going to you in that crazy ass heavy rain with that crazy storm that we haven't seen in a while, kind of in the city. And that stains, it will remind me the marks maybe like, half a year, 5 years later, I'll look at it and it's like, yo, this is where I really first met soul like that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, but most of mine are like toothpaste. And I got jeans with like a big old toothpaste stain on.
Oh, this is the morning I was hungover.
This is the morning I was like brushing my teeth. Like I don't always have good memories
kind
on
of
mine.
good kind of stains and bad kind of stains. Maybe toothpaste on what I'm wearing. Good coloring. It's almost like I'm trying to do my jealous things to it. But then you can also, I would just go get some Chinese hot pot and get some chili oils on it. But for us, it's like, yo, if it's too embarrassing, like don't feel embarrassed to wear it again. Just like put something over it, right?
Yeah.
So we do this patching,
patching over stains.
Patching over stains. We try to like every garment, like the same. The only thing making us not feeling confident to call ourselves not a fashion designer, but trying to just like use garment to express is like we promise to fix every piece of garment for life with this visible mending patch on it, so that you don't feel embarrassed. But then we want to like have this to be a good start. So eventually you might like, yo, it's actually good. I can keep the same piece alive and then kind of like transform it and live with it, create memory as I go, and then I kind of learn how to patch over it myself.
Yeah. I do love visible repairs.
Something else that you were telling me is that you were having or going to have or have had, I think both, like mending workshops. And I don't know if they'd be here or wherever they would be, but people could bring in clothes, not necessarily from Wenjüe Lu. I think that would be ideal.
Michael, can you grab like the fish towards you?
Little fish.
On the table? So yeah, that's a good point, because this is like when we started the workshop like earlier last year. We just started to use this, right? What Capital is famous for, like they borrow like the Japanese sashiko technique and borrow techniques, and then they kind of transfer it onto a pair of jeans and making like a crazy story in the world that it had. So for us, it's like that's beautiful. And then we also kind of had our fair experience, kind of Lulu, my partner, the other half of Wenjüe Lu. She kind of get her first taste of sashiko by trying to just doing like some texture on fabrics, doing her like undergrad program in like Parsons fashion design. And she was like doing this like already, you can see this dotted, right? That's basically called a running stitch. Yep. And that's like the most basic. It's like the line you draw to like paint with sashiko basically. And Lulu was doing that on fabric manipulations, and then it wasn't until later that she kind of came across like sashiko, maybe like an article, maybe a video about it, and it's like, oh, people were doing it in the past, and I kind of that kind of caught my attention as well. So we kind of want to like look into it, and then we realized, yo, there's specific tools that you have to get. There's like a specific way of the hand movement you have to do it to call it like maybe a more authentic way of doing sashiko, and it's always by hand. So whenever it's like done with machine, it's tarnished in a way. And Nike once did like, and they're still doing it. They call it the sashiko packs. It's basically some SB dunks.
I have basketball shoes from those sashiko pack.
And those were like all done by machine, basically.
Yeah, you got that fake ass sashiko.
Yeah, that foo.
Not trying to call you out, but just calling the fashion industry
call them out.
Yeah, call me out. No, they're also from Kyrie Irving, who is a noted like flat earther. Just crazy. I think it's really funny.
You got them flat Earth dunks.
Yeah.
I think before we get too far into this, it's worth just sort of giving a quick overview of what Wenjüe Lu does, because you kind of do everything, and I think people like see one side of it, and a lot of people don't understand that you encompass pretty much everything. So what's a summary of all the things you do, I guess?
I think like right for every collective, for every like creative entity, they don't always start with like I'm starting with this product. They always kind of like, what can I bring with this? And then what do I mean? What kind of statement I'm trying to make?
Sure.
So for us, it's very important that we get that straight for ourselves. So we kind of, compared to how fast the world is constantly accelerating, we found this term, we kind of just term it slowness, that we do want to inject with every intentional move in terms of creative expressions. And then we kind of also are connected by how actually crazy fashion and the art industry is. And we were trying to like look at those industry for it's what it is, and then see, do we really want to get associated with them? And we realized that no, like we're doing garments. We don't want to associate with the fashion industry. We don't want to define them as fashion, because an apple 100 years ago is an apple you eat on the tree.
Yeah.
But like Apple now, it's just like, infinite AirPods and Macs. So, words are actually pretty deceiving in a way, right? The spoken language, the oral language, and also the written ones. Text is only like one way for us to communicate, but why do we need to carve stuff on the cave walls like that many years ago? We need to like tap into a different language that's not bounded by a written one, an oral one.
Yeah, I think it is very interesting to see you create a visual language and storytelling as well, because you have pretty incredible storytelling. There's a probably should have brought it, but I hesitate to call it a catalog, but a book Michael gave me. But it's got poetry, it's got, again, like written statements, it's got photography, and then it's accompanied by even like made objects. Over there I can see them. It's the sphere, the cone, and I forget the third one. They're over there on the thing. I took a video of them.
That was from our last presentation on our latest collection that we're trying to fabricate as a fashion runway show, but in its actuality, it's none of that. For us, it's like a performance art piece that kind of just features performers in garments with set designs that's not supposed to just be sets, installations, but rather be like just art piece and sculpture in its own. Yeah. So we're kind of trying to tap into all those like mediums and try to combine a neater thing that's like not this and not that, but like they kind of like all of that at the same time. But by being all of that, they're betraying what each was meant to be and how each was actually kept at its fixated definition of that word at this point. Like, what does fashion mean right now? Yeah.
No, I think that even ascribing a word to, you think about art, something immediately pops into mind. You think of performance art, something else immediately pops to mind. You think of fashion, something pops into mind. Even clothing, if you were to, associate it with that, brings up certain connotations. And I do think it is interesting to not ascribe to any one of those, not for fear of being boxed in, but just not wanting to be attached to the connotations associated with any one word, which I think is really cool. And you also do a lot of stuff. It's not just fashion. So
no, yeah, I mean, like, looking around the studio, there's sculptures hanging everywhere. It's like fabric sculptures.
Yeah.
There's this giant hand right here. There's racks of clothing behind us. I know there's there's jewelry work. There's just like objects,
there's
of any
necklaces,
sort.
brooches,
like any sort of like you kind of seem to do a little bit of everything, which I appreciate. Is there like a sequence of events that like led from like one thing to the next? Like what made you start a new thing like sculpture after you've done like clothing or any of that?
So yeah, we definitely there's a sequence of events as like how we developed as two individuals. Like that's actually we're kind of started this thing when we were in undergrad. Both me and my partner Lulu, the two of us. Lulu has a fashion background, I just mentioned, and I have a background in media culture and communication, and it's just mostly pretty like theoretical and kind of bland stuff without if you don't really combine it with something physical. And that's kind of maybe for me a blessing that I can maybe align with what Lulu's interest in and our common interest in art itself, and kind of maybe we're trying to question the white cube culture as well to see actually it's pretty bounded. But then Lulu has this background in fashion. So when 2020, when we first started, it's actually also, everybody knows this when the Black Swan pandemic hit. So for
Black
us,
Swan pandemic?
So Black Swan is like describing a really rare event. So it's like in maybe 1,000 or 100 swans, you get a black one as a gene mutation.
Right.
So that's like the terminology they would use to like say, oh, and this is really weird. Maybe when like the bubonic plagues hit, they will call it a black swan because nobody can really predict and prepare for it.
Huh. Interesting. So when the Black Swan plague hit.
So for me, and Lulu, pandemic, it's almost like a, not to pun Oppenheimer, it's like an atomic bomb that drop and kind of level some ground. And then amid the ruins, you see some buds come out. People were like, oh, I can't do this job that I've been doing for my last 10 years anymore. And they're forced to pivot. Some of them survived, some of them didn't, because that's what atomic bomb does. Yeah. So when you survive, you kind of realize that, the radiation kind of taught me not to do this. I kind of have to try this. And then you can kind of realize, maybe this is who I am. Like, this feels much better. I feel like alive, even though everybody's complaining about their lives. And then it's interesting moment for us as well, because when Lulu graduate 2020 undergrad, there's no job to be found.
Yeah.
So what else to do but to like, stay depressed at home. But then kind of you have a hand that's itchy.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were both in New York. Do you think that being in New York especially, and being exposed to, one, the fashion culture here, but just to like the art and I would just say like the experience of being in New York has informed your practice here at all? Do you think that you would not necessarily categorize it, but say that this brand resonates more with New York than any one given place, or is it sort of separate from that?
I think at this point, right, thank you for that question. So for me, it's like, right, New York really what makes us who we are in a way, but also there's also this interesting stereotype, right? When you do something as this nationality, you kind of have to cue your nationality. You use like, blue, red, and blue, like white.
Yeah.
Like when you're American, sometimes you like do those color codings. And like, it's almost like people will kind of question you when you don't use the red and yellow as Chinese to cue anything. And but for us, the way we see it, like I can't really choose where I'm born into. So I was already born Chinese. So like whatever I'm do, they're already fixating that definition. So wherever I do will be Chinese influenced.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we're here in New York, like maybe the best city in the United States. And right, at least they have all the best, right? Exactly that. All the good museums are here. So we're like blessed to kind of stumble into the Met, stumble into the Guggenheim, and all these like sporadic, smaller ones, independent ones as well. And just pretty very, very inspiring for us to like, oh, you can do this with that. You can do that with this. And then it's like almost like a realization moment that when Lulu's already on her fashion program, exposing to this art, she doesn't want to really make clothes anymore because at a very early point, she realized the fashion industry is fucked. And for me to be on my major, it's like at an early point, I realized the world is pretty fucked.
It is difficult. I mean, you and I talked about this as well, but with fashion, even still, which is kind of remarkable to say, but accelerating at, a crazy pace, it perpetuates things like slave labor. It perpetuates things like unsafe working conditions,
Child labor as well.
Yeah. I mean, it just gets sort of worse and worse, unfortunately. And it is sort of astonishing to see people, one, turn a blind eye, but then two, sort of as a positive effect, really celebrate the people that break away from that. And I think it is really telling that, I asked you, like, would you want to mass produce things? Would you want to make things, like 10 ofs? Because I think a lot of your things, and correct me if I'm wrong, are either one-offs or they're made in very small batches.
Yeah, they either like, we have like a sizing system there. We try to be unisex. So it goes from like, the number, kind of borrowing the Japanese system and expanding it. So from number 1 to 6, it's like from like this more petite size to like the really oversized ones. Yeah. So for us, it's trying to, so for some of the styles that we can't afford to make, maybe one per size, we will do it. And that's most of the time the most we do, like 1 or 2 pieces per sizes, because we try to forego the part that when you mass produce it, your factory will give you some tips. It's like, do this stitch this way, maybe like change your curve this way, makes it easy for me and then makes it cheaper for you. Yeah. That's the kind of compromises that we don't want to make when we make clothes, because that means you're trying to make a fashionable product then. Yeah. Not really like clothes that can mean something other than something that make you just only look flashy on the outside.
Yeah.
Is it all done here? Like all the stuff's made in this room? Or?
We developed the all the samples, first sample and the concept of it in the studio, and then we work with closely with a Hong Kongese owned factory in Garment District.
Oh, I remember we talked about this. So he mentioned in the Garment District they also make wedding dresses, and I was like, would you ever make a wedding dress?
Whoa.
And I think you said yes, but
you wouldn't have to break the color scheme.
No, you wouldn't. But that would look, one, incredibly cool. Please, if somebody's getting married, get your wedding dress from Michael, because I want to see it. But I asked you, and I guess, not to gate our conversation to the conversation we had in the coffee shop on like a rainy day 3 or 4 weeks ago, but are there other things that you've been intending to make, either jewelry or sculptures or a wedding dress, places you want to break into, things you want to try to make?
Yeah, to go down that arch, we started with garment and then find the way to express with garment. So we started make like, fabric covered sculptures in the fine art sense. So we kind of branch out from a garment collection that doesn't want to be fashion collection, but it kind of falls in that category because that's the fixed definition we have for fashion. And whatever we make, if you make clothes, you're making fashion stuff. But even though if you don't think it that way, you kind of have to convince a billion other people to do that.
Yeah.
So for us, that's what we want to do. And we kind of pivot to the sculptures and then realize that the moment we hit the sculpture point, we realize, no, it's not like A and B we're choosing between here. It's about the C and D and E and Fs. But like underneath that is like something you kind of generalize as the alphabet. And for us, the alphabet is, right, your philosophy. And then also, right, what's like driving the concept? What kind of message do you really want to bring?
Sure.
Like, right, eventually people kind of land somewhere really cliche and big. It's like, I want to change the world, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse. But we do kind of think that like we kind of need to change the world, make everything better. But we really have to do it physically, hands-only, and then communally. And then we kind of see that, yes, through creative outputs and artistic expressions in any kind of medium and trying to redefine what kind of medium can be used. It's really the key for us to communicate through something that's not just simply spoken or like simply written, but we still recognize the cruciality of writing stuff and pitching your stuff, presenting your stuff orally. But then that's the baseline, right? That's the foundation. Why are we even talking about things having good or bad writing? You need good writing to get anywhere beyond to inform your other stuff.
In that same vein, though, do you think that good art, and I'll generalize a little bit, but good art and good clothing, to have those explanations and to be able to have people understand what you're going for, is good art gated by the quality of writing and the quality of communication about said art? Do you think that people by themselves can glean independently what you're trying to go for? And I guess, is it okay for people to not necessarily get where you want them to go, whether it be in communicating a concept or an artistic idea? As a creative who also puts out writing, who also makes a lot of things, are you okay with people arriving to their own conclusions about what you've made? Do you try and guide them in a certain way? How do you feel about the interpretation of your art once it sort of exits the studio and enters the world, or the public, or a store?
I think for aesthetics reasons, a lot of people focus on the surface, but that's almost what you have to do to catch people's attention. First steps, but people only think about the first steps a lot of the time, and then they don't really follow through. But in a world like this, it's overly commercialized and capitalized. It's basically the first step is good enough. Yeah. So for us, we believe everything is in pieces. For us, is everything is fragmented.
Sure.
Like us as a whole, to make a whole of us, you need million, and you can split that million into billion pieces, and then that kind of binds together into you with all your veins and blood and your brains running. And for us, that basically means nobody can really escape first impressions.
Sure.
So for us, first impression is almost like the most important part, but it's almost like a curse in itself.
Yeah.
That's why we really want to put out this concept of neither, right? Because neither forces you to look beyond A and B. You kind of need to like look beyond the surface to like dig deeper. So maybe you get introduced to this facade. Yeah. This fragmented facade, either through maybe the multiple ways we're trying to express ourselves, either through maybe the garment itself, maybe through the performance piece that we did, maybe through the sculptures, and then maybe in a white cube setting in some galleries. But maybe you saw the jewelry collaborations we did with Mona Jewelry, also a Chinese designer based in Brooklyn, very talented, always inspired by the ocean. But we're trying to do something fun, so we insert our concepts and combine with her expertise.
I will say, if you ever make a fish chain, because you've made a knit one, or not a knit, excuse me, like a fabric-based one that I've seen on your website and on your Instagram. It's very cool. But if you ever make a fish chain out of silver, please let me know, because I've been looking for a good fish chain.
Everything is possible.
Huge, incredible. Love to hear it.
This is the stuff with Mona. That's the little
guys. Yeah.
I love the little guys
so
much.
That's initially what caught my eye from Wenjüe Lu. We were in Komune, and it was at the opening party, and I asked, it must have been Martin.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? Who made this? I love these little things. Like, what is it? He said, oh, it's Wenjüe Lu. And I think it was Brandon when we did the podcast. I was like, you guys should talk to Michael. I think it'd be a really good conversation. You guys have to meet. I came by. I think
you guys appreciate that.
Oh, of course. We met very briefly at the show that you're not showing, but like presentation you did at Komune. You were talking to somebody else, and I was like, I'm just gonna let him go. I think I said hello, hit you up on Instagram, but yeah, like you said, it is. The necklaces and the jewelry is what initially caught my eye, but it's really cool because you walked upstairs and there was that huge. It's hanging above us. There'll be video of it, but the huge spiky ball was in there. There was a tent-looking thing that I don't see in here, but that you also made.
Yeah, it's almost like a cactus piece that's floating by its joints.
Yeah. But, those are the things that initially catch your eye. And I think one thing that you guys do very well is you make things that are very distinct. And I wouldn't necessarily, now that I know you and the brand, but associate with anything else. Like, even the sculptures, I'd have a hard time placing it on any one existing brand or any one existing artist that I would know. And I think part of that is the use of muslin, which I really like. It is very eye-catching, but it's also very tactile. Like it, using silk or using cotton, or I guess muslin is cotton, but you get what I mean. It's plays with light very well, and I think it is very eye-catching because it looks, I don't know, like it looks
pristine and maybe like scary at the same time.
Yeah. Like it looks like it has texture to it. It doesn't look too perfect, but in that way, it's like, oh, cool. Like this actually is meant to be like engaged with or touched and like draws you in a little bit. I really like it. It reminds me of a blank canvas.
I love that everything has hands.
Yeah.
Like all of the sculptures around here all have hands.
I love the feet. The feet on the hanging man over there is fantastic.
Yeah, I think anthropomorphicness is a big part for us as well because right, your brain is built in to recognize human faces.
Yeah.
For us, for me, right, it kind of applies the same way to like when you add limbs to stuff. You don't really think that's a tiger's palm. You just human being so egotistic like that. That's human hand. It's human feet. So they would kind of play with that. Sometimes would give this thing 4 fingers, 3 fingers, or even like no fingers.
Well, that's why dogs develop certain muscles in their faces. They can like better, I think, replicate or communicate like emotion and look more pitiful to humans. So Leo, my fucking dog, who's an asshole and manipulative, has like that eyebrow pinch and he like makes himself look really pitiful. They develop that to like better manipulate humans. It's interesting, right? Like you look for
that kind of developed over like years of domestication as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fucked up how it actually come about.
Yeah.
I just love that like there's so many sort of just like shapes, just like regular objects, but then you put arms and legs on them and now they're cute little guys.
Yeah.
I think like cuteness is a nice disguise and it's like a nice thing, a toolkit to use to grab that, first impression that people value so much.
I think, looking back to cuteness, especially in the Japanese sense, you were talking about shishiko and I guess boro as well, but like the cute aesthetic was born out of Japanese like post-war, post-atomic bomb drop. As sort of a departure from like the grimness of having a country eviscerated by an atomic bomb,
almost like a forced surrealness that people need to survive and cope.
Exactly, but I think it's a really interesting way of drawing people in, and it's eye catching, and it's fun and it's playful. But at the same time, once you dig into it, it's like, oh my god, like there's a reason why it's fun and whimsical. Like it's kind of dark and depressing. But I really like that there's a design ethos more so than a design concept, if that makes sense.
Yes, I think, that's better word to put it, maybe ethos, because gradually we don't intentionally and consciously try to do that, but gradually become a world building process. But then it's for us maybe to be cliche, let's try to channel something from this whatever realm that could be existing in where people see them being, and then but it's right there in front of your face.
Yeah.
And then scale along with cuteness is also a beautiful cover in disguise for getting first impressions. So when you make something big like this,
it's a foot as well. I love that.
And then it just hits you like a statue, like a totem, but then it almost have this modalistic quality. The same way, basically, it just gains the aura instantly with scale. No matter what, you can blow up a Snoopy, 100, 10,000 times. It will like shock the fuck out of you, and you maybe, people might find them like resembling Jesus in a way.
Yeah.
Yo.
I did want to ask, it popped in my head while we were talking about it. So you mentioned using fabrics from Dong community in China. Are there other either Chinese fabrics or Chinese concepts, because you are from China, that you'd like to integrate into your work and ones that you're looking towards? I mean, you work with a Hong Kong-based group out of the garment district to make your clothes. I have that correct? Yeah. Are there any concepts that you'd like to integrate into the current design language from China, whether it be fabrics or just, shapes, clothes?
Yeah, coming from China, we do want to be both worldly, but also connecting to the culture we're basically forced to born into. So we have to get familiar with. So like once we get familiar with it, you kind of get like the eastern side of things. And us being here in the Western Hemisphere, we kind of already. I think being bilingual, it's a blessing. And then once a person becomes bilingual, their world just go into a different paradigm.
Sure.
And then it's like no going back. And then it's
I speak French, but that only means that I get to interact with French people. So that's not great.
It's not useful
I
at
think
all.
the moment you can like speak a second language to the point you can sometimes talk to yourself with it.
Yeah.
Right. Think about things in that particular language. You're already putting yourself into maybe a different persona you just carved out of you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really interesting. I mean, you mentioned also being worldly. Do you find yourself traveling a lot and looking for inspiration from other cultures, or where does your inspiration stem from?
Well, we're in the 2020s. It's like the internet's age and paradise, and everything's rampant everywhere. If you dig hard enough, you see things everywhere from everywhere. And then, sometimes they do come in their authentic ways. You find people trying to represent them online with like heart and love and sincerity. And we started in late 2020. It's been almost 4 years for us now, right? We were stuck throughout in the New York City throughout the pandemic when it really like maybe the waters have come down only really after 2023 like that. Yeah. And still, right, for me, it's still something that we need to keep an eye, out for, scientifically speaking. And also for us to be stuck in here, not maybe as a curse, but also maybe a blessing in disguise, is that this is New York City. Yeah. People flock here from everywhere. Yeah. Bringing their cultures and, whatever they believe in and trying to coexist. Sometimes they don't, but then the clashes makes this boiling pot, this stirring pot. It's really beautiful. You get good kind of clashes, bad kind of clashes. People die from the clashes, people rise from the clashes. But we try to play with these, bigger waves and smaller waves, and trying to coexist and survive in it. So let's see how long we can actually make it in here.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any favorite motifs to work with? So, I mean, looking around, and obviously camera is static, so you can only see some clothing behind us, but you've got a bunch of hanging men, you've got a planet, a big sort of plus sign, a box, some spherical conical shapes. You've got another planet over there.
It is interesting that you see a sphere and immediately call it a planet.
Well, it makes me think of Jupiter because it has the ring around it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it.
And just also the way the light's hitting it. Not to be that guy, but it makes me think of like intro art class where you draw the sphere and then you have to do the shading about 100 times.
Make it like perfect.
Oh my god!
Yeah, all the spherical stuff that you are catching. So and also you, Michael. It's like from the same sculpture series that we did. Most of them in 2022, and we finished some of them up. Some are still in progress. Basically, you see those spherical shapes that hasn't got the limbs yet. Yeah. They're about to have limbs basically eventually, or they might not. Yeah. But for us, these are called the Euclideans. Kind of borrowing the word Euclidean being geometrical. Yep. So when you have a thing that's irregular, you start entering the non-Euclidean plane. Yep. And for us, that's like really fun to play with.
Don't remind me of my senior year math class.
Math class. More fun for Asians than Americans every time. So yes, but then this really comes from at the very bottom of it, at its core, it's actually a critique for the Chinese artistic art education industry and like the institution. Basically how that come about is why we have to really try to make it here. Then in that place is maybe the amount of creative limitations that you do have there.
Interesting.
So for people to enter the art education system in China, they need to do it in a very young age, because by the time they graduate high school, they go through this national art test.
Oh, okay.
To see if they can get into any good kind of art school at all, or if they don't, if their parents rich enough, they send them abroad. So to go through this art education system, like for example, you're learning how to paint, how to draw.
Yeah.
You kind of start. Some people send their kids, to some prep class since like the age of 3.
So it's the same as like a standardized test where they're studying for this.
Yeah. Also, like when you enter a high school, you almost have to declare, right? You want to be a more art and science.
Yep.
Or like you have to, if art is a singular aspect that people kind of have to pick, and then they can't really do anything
else. It's like
else.
Declaring a major in college.
Exactly.
Yo, if I was like constrained to what I wanted to be at age like 14,
exactly,
I would be in a horrible place
but
right
it
now.
wasn't even 14. Like at age 3, your mom put you into this painting class.
Damn.
And then basically you have to do that. Like for example, if this other mom thinks like piano better, go to piano class. Maybe the only choice at age 16 is to be a musician. But then Chinese is always hardworking, and also maybe we're like collectively we need, like for me, so this is my opinion, we need more collective education for us to have the toolkits to really be a critical thinker. Yeah. So basically what also the system itself is hindering that process. Basically, as a kid, you just don't get to really encourage to like, draw your own shape. They want you to be able to recreate a Renaissance painting, brush stroke by the age of 12.
Interesting. So it doesn't necessarily encourage creative expression, but rather creative imitation.
Basically, because creative expression is dangerous for a country that's still in somewhat of a quasi-dictatorship energy. So
forgive maybe a slightly ignorant question, just because I don't follow a lot of Chinese artists. I know Ai Weiwei. He's sort of the big Chinese artist I know, and I know others, but they're photographers. They don't necessarily comment. Ai Weiwei is a good example. Are there a lot of Chinese maybe dissident artists that will then leave China and use art as a medium to critique China and the art community as a whole? Yeah, almost if they don't have relatives in the government, they have to do that. Interesting. Just being blunt. Yeah, no, I mean, that makes sense. Did you engage in this system when you were younger? Were you sort of put onto a track either by your parents or by yourself? And did you feel like you wanted to break out of it? Was there some sort of degree of comfort knowing sort of your path at an early age? I think, my mom and dad tried to put me through a lot of things. They put me on this Chinese chess class. They put me on this, Olympic mathematics class. Yeah. Before I was in middle school, basically. Mm-hmm. And they also tried putting me on like a instrument class. But like I wasn't good at none of those. I suck at instruments. Basically, like I have no interest in all those. So like, interest is the best teacher. But I was always curiosity driven. But then to escape, sadly, all I can do is to like really hop on a device and find games to play. Yeah. So, I play a lot of games on all kind of mediums, like until I was in college, when I really do have the toolkits, like right here. When I went to NYU to really like grow, also mature to an age that I can really think about myself like that. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, I mean, it does take a good degree of introspection. And I remember going through it like at college. I remember at age 20 being like, actually, I don't think I want to be a mathematician. Like, this kind of fucking sucks. Oh yeah, I
realized I was in the wrong major about when I got my master's.
Yeah. For me, you never really become adult until you are 30. Yeah. So like 18 is a fake number they're trying to put, right? 21 is the drinking age, all that shit. I say this all the time. I still have my soft spot on my head, and I just mash it with a hammer every now and then to keep it nice and soft. That's just a keep good reference. Yeah, just keep myself nice and oblivious. But I did want to say, I really do like how, and I guess we were talking about it, but yeah, I never even get to the actual part because during they were training you to be artisans. Oh yeah. So maybe from like age 3 to like age 18 every day. Besides, you start replicating Renaissance painting. Yeah, they have all these like you go to a French painting class. They have these like sketches, trying to do charcoal sketches on this geometric plaster cast. Yes. And then Chinese would go even crazier to like, oh, let me cross two cuboids together and don't care about the religious reference that it might have, because not much Chinese are Christians, and then create like a cross, but then they basically, it's for them it's only two cuboids interjointed. So like it was nothing about like the cross and the Christ like that, but it was like something they want to create a more difficulty and more maybe interesting challenge for the kids to practice the shadings. So they would do this every day. Like they would do 100, if not, a couple hundreds of these every day. They would rearrange it, do one more, rearrange it, do one more until they get good.
Do you think great art can be born out of, so I think that, I'll put my own opinion aside. Do you think great art could be born out of almost like complete obliviousness and not knowing any reference, not knowing any like old masters to replicate, not having any necessarily formal training, but just saying great art?
I think so.
Or do you think you need like an art education in order to make great art?
I think that's like a just different way to approach it. Basically, like how do we define art is very arbitrary. For me and Lulu, the way we believe is that, right, as human beings, we are living in a collective and like broadcasting history every day. So for us, there's no real originality. Like we wouldn't say like any of our shit is original. Like, so anybody can plagiarize it. Basically, like, that's a definition that needs to be, re-seen as well. But like we take all our references and try to combine all these references together into a synthesis process. But who says that's anything original? Yeah. If like the history doesn't inform this, we wouldn't be here. So that's basically our take on like, that allows us to create and also to throw out stuff that we don't kind of associate with our ego, or it doesn't like, maybe I just throw this dart out, it travels across the globe. Yeah. And never it would land back to the two of us as individuals. But it's rather like I trying to like, because it wouldn't mean anything if nobody is trying to define it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. I mean, again, like going back to childlike and even just putting hands on things, like the more you look at these sculptures, and this also goes into art history, but looking at sculptures of like hanging men, or I guess they are men because you've put hands and feet on them.
Lynching.
Huh?
Lynching.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's sort of what it ends up invoking, but it's interesting because it's not necessarily the initial way that it reads, just because it is a little bit childlike and playful. But I do appreciate that there is a layer of, there are multitudes to all art, obviously, but it's not super in your face about it, which I also enjoy. I don't know. I think
like all the, right, I was saying everyone's fragmented. Yeah. So every artwork is fragmented. So you walk into this particular gallery, you saw this sculpture at this particular angle. I'm sorry, excuse me. But that was already a still frame that you pause, first impression, snap, and that's basically the piece of fragment you were handed in the first place. And it's the moment you start working closer to that thing and trying to circulate it, you gather infinite other pieces, the longer you want to spend with it. And then you try to look up the label, who's the artist, when is it? All those are tiny fragments. So for me, like I believe in like these fragments being like, alive and physical and inform every one of us and keep us going. Yeah. But then every fragment's already contain the entirety. Yeah. But then at least that's the way we want to approach it. So when we can approach something, if we don't start right with this ESO, this world, and the concept that comes from that, and then the actual physical references, historical references, philosophical, literature references that we have to do it, right? When writing a poem is almost like poetry is the betrayal of like, right, the written language and the oral language. Sure. And it's right, actual form trying to like, tell you, or, you don't boss people around with poems. Yeah. So basically for us, that's a beautiful way to try to like escape. That's when you're trying to attempt to get to that neither realm with like, the written language, the spoken language, and try to hit at something that's almost subconsciously you will need to find a different way to express. Yeah. And I think like that doesn't only applies to the literal way, the textual way with poetry, right? Life is a poem that we're writing when we're breathing in it. And maybe that's like slightly Taoist from our side. And Taoism is a big topic too. So people can be a Taoist and be a far-right extremist. So it's really important that you kind of pinpoint exactly what in Taoism attracts you. But for us, it's almost like, global warming is real, climate change is real, the earth is dying. So that kind of side in us allows us to associate with this quote in Taoist It's called 天人合一 in like Mandarin, 天人合一, 合一 in Cantonese, but in English it means heaven's will and the human as one. But then heaven in the East Asian context will never be a Christian kind of God up there, but it's about the world itself, basically nature. So this quote is about trying to find that symbiotic relation, constantly feel everything, feel the spirits that's moving in every actual object that's physical and non-physical, metaphysical also. So to really find that balance to coexist. Otherwise, maybe we only have 5 more decades.
Certainly hope not. That's slowly what I'm learning at school as time is going out. But could you tell us more about Taoism as a whole? Because again, I don't know that much about it, but I'd love to know, I guess, more about the actual practice itself, the philosophy behind it, and then how you relate to it, just either in your practice or in your daily life as a creative or as an artist.
I think Taoism is very much a metaphysical philosophy, but also it's a science in itself. People, that's it's a huge concept and topic, and multiple historical figure, Chinese historical figure has contributed to it. Lao Tzu, Zhuangzi, they're two the prominent figures in Taoism. They kind of did the foundational text and all that for the Taoist philosophy to be developed and be picked up and then trying to be continued.
Sure.
So there's an aspect of Taoism that people, it's almost like this weird cultist branch of Christianity. They're trying to do alchemy. They will call you they will call you a cultist, basically. So
legitimate alchemy, turning things to gold?
Yes.
Interesting.
The Chinese try to do it, but then they do try to make gold from anything, but also they're trying to make this one pill you can take to live forever. So they also look for immortality.
Yeah.
But it also gets really, I think, philosophical in a way, especially with Zhuangzi.
Yep.
He kind of discussed a lot about dreams, but also actually what an actual utopia could be like. So they're actually trying to get in hand in hand with how to do a social transformation and reimagination of how you can really better ourselves, but then better ourselves by realizing that humans should not be dominating anything. Nobody should be dominating anything. We are just it's almost very like a Buddhist Hinduism kind of combining with everything as one. So it kind of had this Buddhist influence.
Interesting.
From India.
Was Taoism a offshoot of Buddhism originally, or was it its own religious or philosophical
I would say
concept?
It's heavily influenced by Buddhism, but also I Ching from China is also it's like an old foundational text for a lot of later religion, and when it kind of meets with Buddhism, that kind of makes the entire Chinese philosophy comes to life.
Got it. So I asked before, but I'd like to bring it up again. Do you feel like it informs your practice at all?
I think so. If we want to describe this world that we're trying to build, it's probably a Taoist utopia that we're trying to tap into, but we will never get there because we believe in this neitherness, almost like when Susan Sontag brings about this campness, that camp with the word, but then she can't really just put a label on it, right? She can't really just camp and then it's a noun or it's a verb and then try to define it and Urban Dictionary or some shit. You kind of need 10,000 Urban Dictionary entries.
Yeah.
And each of them kind of using either I can use an actual sculpture, actual place from back in the days, but then also currently what's happening around the world that I can draw this circle around this dot that's all undefinable.
Yeah.
Because that's how Apple changed the definition of Apple.
Yeah.
So for us, is this neitherness is kind of signifies the unknown.
Sure.
But there's two kind of unknown. It's one is outside of yourself.
Yep.
The other one is inside of yourself. So when it's outside of yourself, you kind of try to you need to you realize, the world that I know right now is not all that's of it. It's so big that I could never tap to the end of it. So I need to keep tapping into it. And then that's for us, an essential quality of neitherness. But then the other point is what's the unknown inside yourself? And for us, neitherness is that naivete to both of these. When it's inside of yourself, you realize that today I'm not in my final form. Tomorrow I will watch a film. I will just trip on the rock and bled over my head. And then that will be a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
I lose my leg, or God forbid, something happens that's so traumatic. You realize that, I'm not done with my ego yet. Because who's telling you to stop?
Yeah.
Looking more deeper into the world. and looking deeper into yourself, not yourself and your ego. For us, it's right to do anything that's sincere. You need to try to dissolve that.
Yeah.
You may never do that, but you should always try to do that.
Yeah.
I feel like the thing about like camp and things within that sort of argument is like sort of a strong enough person could argue anything is camp. Like it's the sort of thing that like it doesn't have its definition is like loose enough that you can sort of just like, if you get a confident enough person, they could convince you pretty much anything's camp.
I think it's almost easier to define what is not camp than it is to define
what's not camp.
I think it's almost like a feel, like you know when you've gotten there, right? And a lot of it is that same confidence. But like, what is not camp? Like you see Balenciaga's camp, I think.
Yeah, see?
Like that's why when we need to agree to disagree. That's why we need fluctuating definition for shit.
The finance dudes that are so deep into it where they're actually wearing the vests, that's not camp. But if I wore the vest, that'd be camp.
Like this is when we hit the ego wall.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Deep sea welding is camp. Regular welding is not camp.
Regular welding can be camp though. It can.
I think this is like what makes human being.
Yeah.
We like all disagree, but we somehow agree to disagree because right, hope is a common thing, right? Tomorrow I still want to wake up and get going, whatever the fuck I'm doing. I could be doing the McDonald's shift for another day, but still, I don't want to just kill myself today.
One of the things I really enjoyed, I visited Australia in 2019 in the summer. And I did this research project on climate change and how it affected rural communities. I won't go too far into the actual research. It's riveting. It's really bad for rural communities. But one of the things I really liked about Australians in particular is they don't really care what you believe in as long as you're willing to argue it and stand by it, which is really cool. So I'd get into like, not screaming matches, but very spirited debates. And never at a point did the other person feel like they wished ill on me or like had any malintent or anything of the sort.
Yeah,
they just wanted me to like present my opinion and hear them out. Nothing personal. They were just like, I enjoy that you're willing to have this conversation and have this opinion and stand by it. And like, that's it. There's no horse in the race.
Australia should start a podcast.
They should. I fuck with Australians. Real Australians are some of the
podcast.
Dude, the entirety of Australia.
I fucking love Australians. I could go about this for they're just the most wonderful people.
It'd be an infinite like, section where like, they just let the entire population go from the oldest to the youngest, like every day's people born.
But something I try and do, and I'm not great at it, but I try, is if somebody has an opinion, not necessarily getting angry at them for holding it, but trying to get to the bottom of why they hold that opinion and like where it comes from. And I think that's genuinely an interesting way to go through life. And I'll loop this back to interview in a second, but just bear with me here. I think that most people could get over their social anxiety if they just understood the person that they're talking to has an opinion and there's a reason why they hold it. Not necessarily because they're angry at you or because they have any, they feel any type of way.
Yeah, you're not talking to that person. You're talking to a bunch of fragments.
Exactly.
And those fragments, like really, when they are together in the flesh, they are a person. But whenever you're on a conversation, you can only touch on one fragment at a time or maybe two, depending on the depths of the conversation.
Exactly.
But you could never really be one with that person almost, because to meet all those fragments, you really need to shatter yourself enough, and that other person have to be willing to do so as well. And as we know, it's almost impossible how many best friends for life you can get throughout your lifetime.
No, but exactly. Like that's, I think, what allows at least me personally to engage with new people in a meaningful way. But also I think when you have a nebulous concept of either neither or even just as Wenjüe Lu as a concept, you do need to be able to understand that there are a lot of things going into it. And this is true for any fashion brand. I don't mean to say it like this, but like Wenjüe Lu is not unique in the fact that it is creating art and creating objects and clothing and whatever it is. But I really enjoy that it's not just we wanted to make clothes that look cool or we wanted to make sculptures that look cool.
Yeah, it's more about keeping that living entity alive, right? When you do something creatively, like I imagine, right, the pair of kings to be, right, when you guys like conjoined in a way, it's right here. It's not like it's not in you, but it's something that's here, invisible links, connected. the moment you stop thinking about it or breathing about it, it kind of fades, kind of, kind of starts like, tumbling, maybe shrinks. Eventually it might get reduced to nothingness. But, for as long as it was alive and as it was documented, people can find that tiny piece of maybe like an archaic fragment of it. But that's what basically they keep it alive, right?
Yeah.
They throw it in the back of their head until the day they die. If they, if they tell them their children about it, fragments get translated and then, passed on.
Yeah.
That's how human works for me, and how life works in general, and how, also a key for us to realize, to really, save the world in a way.
What we don't tell you about Pair of Kings is that it's not 1 and 2, it's half of 1, half of 2, half of 1. We've each got half of each of the pair of kings in us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We are not the kings ourselves.
But you can still keep splitting.
Kind of like a Punnett square of sorts.
It's like infinitely splittable pies, or like, paper that you can constantly bend, keep folding and folding, and into that one singularity, and then boom, it kind of exploded on everyone.
Yeah.
We should get you to. So we have a Discord.
Oh yeah, good call. Fuck, I always forget this, Michael. This is why you're here.
We have this is why I'm here. It's for the Discord. We have a Discord. We invite people to join it, but they have to prove to us that they've listened to an episode. So if you would like to join the episode,
join the Discord. You mean?
Join the Discord. I always do that. If you would like to go back in time and be on this episode, if you'd like to join the Discord, Michael, what should they message us?
At Pair of Kings Pod on Instagram.com. Please stop messaging me on my personal. It's very sweet.
Keep messaging me on my personal. It's funny.
What does that question like intends to seek?
It's that we have them message us anything. Any sort of like word or phrase or image that proves to us that they listened to at least this portion of the podcast, and then we bring them into the Discord.
We call it the happiest place in fashion. It's a very, very nice place.
Let's do neither-ism.
Neither-ism.
Cool. I love that.
Message me or Pair of Kings Discord and not Saul. Neither-ism.
Fucking
Message specifically Saul and then send me a screenshot of you messaging Saul and I'll let you into the Discord. I've gotten multiple amen, where I can get some of them sweet Balenciaga links in the last week, which was our last phrase.
Yeah.
And I got really confused the first time I saw one because I was like, what are you asking me?
Yes, you need to get used to that.
Yeah. Neither-ism.
So we're on video right now, which is really cool. And something that I need to remember that we're doing. We're not just doing audio. Would you take us through some of the favorite things you have around? I guess Michael and I can sort of touch on some of the favorite things. Personally, I think the favorite thing that I have in here of yours is this. I don't know if it's muslin because I can't tell from here, but it's a cactus.
Make me think of home.
Yeah. It's made with the same fabrics right here.
Oh my
the
God,
Dom
that's
people
so cool.
fabric. So right for us, the definition of muslin is trying to redefine it in a way that neither shouldn't be one definition.
Well, you talk. I'm gonna go get it so we can show it on video.
Undye, like any unbleached, undyed natural fibers for us qualify as muslin. So muslin become this language. Basically, we're trying to speak. For us, it's not a color in itself, right? It's nature's color. So if I'm using unbleached, undyed cotton, it's in that off-whitey color. But if I'm using linen, depending on the sunshine it gets and how early and late it was harvested, you get different hues of like raw linen. And for us, right, this is like one of our sculpture piece, the cactus studies. I think this one is called the cactus studies, one of them, and then it's called a knot because of the knotted texture.
I was gonna say, so my grandmother, and why I like this so much is she has kept the same cactuses for 43 years.
Beautiful.
Maybe longer now. But she started in Potomac, Maryland when my grandfather was working at the NIH. And she's had the same cactuses forever. And I just associate her and her kitchen and her like being with her with cacti, which is very funny because she lives in Massachusetts now, which is like, at least cactus rife place.
That's so beautiful. That's a fragment you get from looking at it and then combining with the fragment deep inside yourself. Yeah. For us, right? That chemistry is basically what make art.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because especially within fashion, you look for those sort of motifs or those fragments that you connect with, right? Like I love fly fishing. I love dachshunds. I love cacti. I like, whatever it is. And in fashion, you're gated by what is on clothing, what is printed on clothing, or what you're able to find, or colors, or whatever it is. But I do enjoy that it's not, or what you're doing here is not just clothing. You have sculptures, you have art pieces, metal jewelry, whatever it is. And I think it allows for a greater engagement in a different variety of ways, which is fun. And I do really like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think when Noguchi said, "Oh, everything is a sculpture," me and Lulu felt that hard because like I can pull this thing, not even with this. You can hold this a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll just slide this chair right here, and then I ask everybody to take a step back, and then I can call this, stool. I don't know who makes it. I can call it a sculpture. That's how modern art works.
Oh, well, you've seen the guy who goes into art galleries and just puts the little tabs like next to trash.
Yeah.
So he'll like drink a Coke and like wrap up a Subway sandwich.
Favorite game.
I think that's so funny.
My favorite game at like modern art museums is like, is that art or is that just like part of the building? Like
I did that
water hose coming out of the wall. Like what it, a similar, I guess like sort of a similar idea to the Noguchi thing is there's this Bruce Nauman quote, because
I love Bruce Nauman.
Bruce Nauman was there's some of his art pieces are just videos of him walking around his art studio, and he says the quote that goes with it is, "I'm an artist, so everything I do is art."
It's great. I'm a podcaster. Everything I do is a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's like almost
barista.
right. You have to combine the communicational aspect that everybody knows as a cliche, the spoken and the written one, and you kind of have to play with it, but combining, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't work without a video, but wouldn't work without the statement.
Yeah.
So you kind of need to mesh. That's already right. Attempt trying to go beyond the A and B as two options, because you tend to really reduce, right? What's the next steps I would take? You always think, I need to reduce everything into A and B, but you forgot there was infinity before that.
Similarly, I do think every job is barista.
Or like DJing.
Yeah, everyone's a DJ. I'm a data DJ. You're a fabric DJ
on the keyboard like that, and I just like DJ with my needle and thread.
Yeah, Saul's an environment DJ.
Of an environment DJ,
okay. Or an environment barista. We won't be able to show it to the camera.
I think we'll
put some video.
Just get a video.
I can
cut it in.
Wait, actually,
I'm tall.
You're not going to be able to get that. No, that's installed. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I can't. I have video of it though.
Yeah, so we'll put video.
I have
up here,
video of it.
The thing that I'm interpreting as a planet with arms splashing, crushing itself into a wall. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah,
I've been staring
that's
at that
awesome.
all night.
It's really great. I mean, there's so many interesting things. There's one straight ahead. I don't know if I could pull it out without damaging it. That reminds me of like a mushroom growth. You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, we call that it's funny because we try to always create something that could be small.
Yeah.
If you go close enough, but then you can also imagine them to be big, right? I was saying, right, scale, it's a scary cover, to cover a lot of good thing and bad thing.
I'm almost surprised you haven't worked in some capacity with like bonsai trees. Because I feel like that sort of mentality or that sort of ethos would work quite well, where things are intentionally made to feel small, yet they are quite large, or vice versa, where they're meant to feel quite
imagine
large,
to be a tiny little figure inside, like underneath the bonsai tree. It just looks like the tree of life every time. So for us, like that power is right in us. Yeah. But we don't ask you to do that, but we can invite you to do that along of a lot of other ways you can experience a piece, an object, basically. So that we call that the pawns of the New World Towers.
I like that a lot. That's so pretty.
You mentioned also you're looking into making furniture now.
I don't know if we could see it on camera. Would you mind pulling the ball over?
Yeah.
It's really cool, genuinely.
Yeah, it's a little preview out right here. So we're like prototyping some furnitures over the course of 2023. So maybe like 2024 we can do our rendition of this globe, this yoga ball chair that kind of is a posture corrector. But we can really try to play with it.
I will say.
Can you give the yoga ball arms?
Oh, like stop giving me ideas because nothing's original. I wouldn't say, I took it from Michael, but you can put this tape out and say, yo, I inspire Wenjüe Lu.
No, that's totally fine. I don't need, I'll cut it out of the podcast. Don't give me credit. I just want to see it with arms.
You have to cut it out and send it to me specifically. So, I'll just use you in every campaign.
Yeah, there we go.
Do you ever like get mischievous and while your friends are like staying over, sleeping at your place, just sew some arms onto their clothes?
Just give them some extra arms.
No, but people do like. I like how people like first impression really works differently on different person. That's why that's beautiful, but also scary, right? Sometimes people fixate that entire thing on the first impression forever. So like when you're a photographer and you try to do something else when we're like making garment, and they imagine us to be fashion designers, but without knowing that fashion designer could be a fluctuating word for us. So they would say, yeah, whatever you make, the sculpture could be just like decorations for your, you know, maybe for photos, they're just all props. But for us, is to play around with that. It's very important to, people come in, they say, oh, these are so cute. But people come in like, yo, this is kind of scary. Yeah. Because, right, people can imagine those little mannequin look like, they're basically called mannequin 1, 2, 3s. Yep. 4, 5. So we make like, you know, it's inspired by the fashion mannequin that dress forms basically. Yeah. But then it's kind of ugly with the metallic bottom and the wheels. Like you're supposed to make garment, which is like a beautiful medium for expression. It's basically sculptures that directly interacts with the human body, the physics, and all the part of it. And even when you moves with it, you become a moving sculpture. I think that's as pure as you can get to imagine garment to be. You know, maybe some, you know, simultaneously and parallel, but outside of the definition of fashion that we do have right now. Because if you're only trying to look nice, it's always just an ego thing. It's never about like a fashion like that. It's a fashionable product post-capitalism. Yeah.
I will say, just as a quick aside, I love being in especially like an artist studio, and it feels like, I mean, there's a lot going on, but it's quite nice to see almost like the way that you're thinking or the way that you're setting up a space visualized. And I think, I mean, I took some B-roll. I hope it's enough. I hope people sort of get the sense of what I'm talking about. However, it's very nice to see sort of the work in progress, or the work in progress in progress.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's very refreshing. I love seeing all the different fabrics. I love seeing things sort of, you know, there's scraps over there. I think
nothing is really finished. Yeah. Right? Like, but then doing too much or too little could kill a work.
So I guess the question is, how do you, or when do you feel like something is done, right? Because I used to work as a artist and a photographer, and a big problem that I had, especially within painting and sculpture, photography, it's a little bit easier, but is feeling like something is done and you're ready to like put it out into the world.
I think, you know, depend on how honest people are. That line is always arbitrary, right? It's always personal for, you know, that person, or for that group of person, or for that one person that's making call for that group of person.
Sure.
So when do you draw that line? Sometimes people can, you know, sometimes it's a lie, sometimes it's real. I experienced some of those moments. You just, you know, get to that point, you finish that one stitch, or you kind of just place it at a different angle, and you realize you don't want to do anything else to it. Yeah, like a eureka moment. But that's like, could be a cliche, but also right, sometimes you just don't have enough resource and time. You have to call it a pause, basically. So that's why, you know, a lot of like younger musicians, they put out their demos and stuff that somehow blew up, and kind of people have their first impression that scratchy sound is like, you're aesthetic, but no, like I just didn't have enough money to buy the good equipment. Like I don't intend for any of that shit to sound like that.
And now
but
you guys spend like loads of
and
time
now I have to make it. So right.
Yeah.
So for us blowing up and even getting the investment, getting that check is a fucking curse. Yeah. Right, they box you in that first impression, and then you can't really, it's so hard to grow out of their skin until you're really privileged or really lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I imagine it's quite hard, especially when you have people who want what they think your brand should be dictating what your brand should be, rather than you dictating it and them being able to witness the final product, which in reality is probably what they want. They just don't know how to, I guess, let you do what you want.
Yes, I think we just want to invite people to tap into the unknown. Like that's the most pure way for us to exist. Yeah. You know, realistic speaking, we're still like operating, you know, we have like garment collection that's purchasable. We have like sculpture that's purchasable. But then it's basically the way we need to cope to really kind of sustain the way that we do. So like, as long as we breathe, we get to redefine it. So like, sometimes that thing, that a concept can be, you know, an ethos can be strong enough that I don't have to live to like continue it. Yeah. So that would be like a beautiful thing that we've been doing for the longest time right now. That's how human history progress and works, right? Why we're still reading about Hegel, like stuff like that.
Yeah. It's interesting. Do you read a lot of philosophy?
I think I used to be a really visual person coming from that gaming background. So I went into a lot of like initially more film. So I feel like film is a beautiful medium being so current as well.
We talked about movies. You said, if I'm remembering correctly, one of your favorites is Holy Mountain?
Holy Mountain is good. I also like Tarkovsky stuff, just cliche art directors, right? Kubrick is nice. But then also this film is called The Color of Pomegranate. It's about the Armenian culture, and then it's like a film poem that kind of tried to use the format of film and trying to get, at the neither realm with it and trying to just really brutalize the film as a medium. When Picasso brutalized painting as a medium, which is we're trying to do as well. Like not to brutalize in the bloody way, but to try to just smash things a little bit, right? Hit it hard enough so we can kind of see the cracks that's already there. But people glue it with materialistic desires and ego. Yeah. So it's hard for you to kind of see it's full of cracks, even yourself when you look into the mirror. But you try to only cover it, right, with makeups.
Yeah. I get what you mean. Speaking about, I guess, videos or movies, I think I've told this story in the podcast before, but one of my favorite works of art ever was in the LVMH Foundation in Paris. And again, I don't like Paris, but this is a great museum. And it's stuck with me since 2018, which is 5-6 years ago now? 5. But it was a video installation. It was called a movie. The video, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, was like 40 minutes long. It was just a video of a large field with, I don't know if it was wheat, but just long reeds. They had set up probably a couple hundred wind chimes, and you would sit down, or you could, on this big bed of the material of the field. So it was like cut hay or cut reeds.
Nice.
And audio was fantastic. You could just hear wind and the wind chimes. You could smell it, which is really interesting. I've never had such like a tactile experience. And you just watch the wind come through these long sort of grasses and reeds and blow these wind chimes. I must have sat there for like 25 minutes. And I've never really had that experience with art before that point, where I was so like transfixed by the video, even though in reality it was like staring at like, like paint drying, right? I mean, like it wasn't necessarily like, it wasn't incredibly fast. It wasn't incredibly tactile. There was nothing too flashy about it, but I was completely transfixed and it was amazing. And I think that if you do video especially well, you can really draw people in and like hold them in a way that affects them deeply.
Yes, I agree with that a lot.
I'm usually really like, I'm very kind of anti-video art installations until I find the right one, and then I'll sit there for like an hour and watch an entire movie.
I think a lot of video art tries too hard to be video art, if that makes sense.
A lot of art tries too hard to be art.
Yeah. But the other one that I saw was in contemporary Copenhagen. It was a huge room. I mean, probably about 120 feet long, 80 feet wide, and then maybe like 50 or 60 feet tall. Colossal. And one of the entire walls was this huge video installation of just data about the Earth. And it had this like crushing, brutally loud audio to the point where the people I was with like had to leave because it was like, this is too loud. But it was a mixture of biological data, global data, and then audio from like people's bodies. So it was like a heartbeat. You could hear like breathing. You could hear like it was almost like blood rushing mixed in with like satellite noise and airline noise and something about it. I just sat on the
beautiful
floor.
River.
Yeah, I just sat in the room for like 45 minutes, and that
the cosmic latte.
Yeah, I was just like
the average color of the world.
Holy fuck.
This is the average color of the universe, actually.
Yeah.
Let's fucking go.
Do you know about the cosmic latte?
No, you just
I'll pull it up on my phone.
They like, you take a snapshot of basically the entire universe. And you average all the colors together, you get this like soft caramel beige, basically.
Well, like thank you, Cotton, for giving.
It's like the exact
Cosmic latte.
color.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's why cotton's giving this natural color. They don't have to do stuff about it.
It
and
is the
inherently imperfect.
Average color of the universe as perceived from the Earth, found by a team of astronomers from Johns Hopkins University.
So Michael, you just gave me a new piece of fragments I'm using to like I'm having a paradigm shift right now because I was meant to say like muslins are imperfect. If you look into it, you see these tiny brown freckles. That's basically when they process the cotton. The shells that didn't all the way go away, and then they kind of get factored into weaving into them into muslin, like without bleaching them and dyeing them. You get this so-called cosmic latte with these tiny freckles that now resemble stars to me.
I think it goes back to like
it.
nothing that's perfect is interesting. Like it's interesting initially because it's like, oh wow, like that's really nice. Like it's almost like a blank sheet of paper, where the second anything hits it, it's like, oh.
The most perfect thing is your ego.
No, I don't think egos are perfect.
No, like when you take a split second to like screenshot yourself.
Yeah,
the perfection is also dictated by how you define like how you like what is your ego and how are you making peace with that. And then tomorrow your ego grows, maybe tomorrow your ego shrinks. But then perfection is a fluctuating line for you, and whenever your egos change and shift, that kind of just like projects a version of perfection for yourself.
But my point is, I don't think that anybody can be perfect.
That's why, right? Ego's imperfect. You just said that.
Yeah, but I do think it is not necessarily perfect, because I really hesitate to use that word, but beautiful. And it takes things getting a little fucked up, or things being wrong, or people making mistakes to have interest and intrigue. Like in relationships, romantic or otherwise, if everybody always acted in the ideal way, nobody would be having fun. It's not interesting.
I mean, yeah, right. There's no beautiful without ugly, like
Exactly.
without comparison.
Exactly.
You don't have
Exactly.
the line. So why? But then, kind of to get to that comparison, you need extremely like you need two rice on the scale. You need two sides, and then whatever size you have right now, you just pause yourself. Right, your ego determines that. For my opinion. So basically, that's what's like everybody's issue to overcome with life.
Yeah.
Right. You grow up, you kind of have the ego already, but you don't have any toolkits to decipher it and trying to do anything to it. And then you go to college, you say, oh, I'm this kind of guy. I want to do this. I picked this for my major. Let me stick with it and see what happens. And then your ego kind of, either get crushed, either get expanded from what you do, like depending on your luck and your privilege and where you're coming from and where you were born into.
I think anybody's ego that expanded in college needs to just like be avoided. If your ego didn't get crushed in college, you were not a human being to me.
Yeah, you
were an ego guy?
I don't know. I don't even remember college. I'm just messing with you.
No, it's that like Sisyphus reference.
I was such a piece of shit in college for my first years. It is like Sisyphus.
Oh, yeah,
you got to
no,
roll that like I'm a piece of shit.
Life is
folder.
not a pyramid. If you think life is a pyramid, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like when people say I peaked in blank, and I think that the second you believe that you've peaked, you've peaked. You know what I mean? It's
like
literally
your peak. It will never be the highest peak.
Yeah, exactly.
Like nobody's peak will be the highest peak. Like when you put it in history, you find a highest peak. But then also that's like at this time frame that we're talking about history right now. In 50 years, who know the peak that we're talking about? The Renaissance.
Still relative,
Local
right? It's still be relevant.
Local, exactly. It's local maximum. But then the other thing is, you can't. I mean, temporally look forward and have any frame of reference for what's going to happen to you. All you can do is compare it to what's already gone on, right? So like you can say right now I'm peaking. However, in 50 years, you're going to look back and be like, yo, I was in a dark place then.
Yeah.
Like, damn, I was going through it. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think that, this is way off base, or not even fashion podcasting anymore. The way you perceive time,
us as a studio want to tap into though, like art is life, and then like fashion. If you are pure enough, you think it's art, but then art is life. So fashion is life, but then when fashion is life, and you still want to go into a storefront, pick a clothes out of a rack, and call, this represent me in a certain way, but there's like 10,000 copies of that shit, and like who the fuck are you? Like you picked out one fragments that allows you to be the same as 10,000 other guys.
At the same time, though, and I'll abandon my earlier point, but I do think it is wonderful to feel a kinship through clothing. Like if I see somebody wearing something that I'm wearing, especially at this point when I feel like
uniformity.
Yeah, it is fun and it's kind of comforting. It's like, oh shit, like yo,
you got that
that's
McDonald's
Twizzy,
uniform as well.
Yeah,
Let's go, fellow
it's
McDonald's
fun.
employees.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think that I think you have to try way too hard to be perfectly unique. And I think it does feel really nice.
No,
to
it's
feel
like a realization. It's like we don't have to do much to be unique.
Yeah.
Existing makes you unique.
Yeah.
Like why draw the line and then why try to be the same if you're already so unique?
Yeah.
Like why? But then right, this common sense is so important for us somehow to like not to remember. We only have to keep a baseline as simple as like respect your fellow human being. Keep that baseline respect there, and then anything else you can be whatever you want and do whatever you want to keep this community alive.
Yeah.
In a way for us, for like to be sustainable, to be keep breathing in another day, because whatever happens tomorrow could be the end of the world. That hope that's innate in every human will keeps you alive tomorrow and wake up and face the end of the world and still thinking you have a tomorrow.
Yeah.
And on that note,
should we do song of the week?
Yeah,
Let's
I think
do
that's,
it. Yeah,
that's
beautiful.
That's the summary of it. I think
We've
that's
hit our
beautiful.
local maximum.
Yep,
Let's
we
go.
peaked. Honestly,
So we do a segment on the podcast called Song of the Week, where every week we ask our guest, or if it's just Michael and I, we ask Michael and Solomon. Solomon's crazy. We ask what's a song you've been listening to, something you've been enjoying just over the past week or just recently, and we add it to a podcast playlist called Pair of Kings, where the G is a 9. Do you have a song that you want to add either to, or it doesn't have to necessarily just be one song, but any song or songs that you'd like to add to the playlist?
Yeah, I really like the UK like trip hop group Portishead, and they recently just had this 25th anniversary. They did like this live in New York City actually, and it was like not like one of the few recorded live of them, and they released it as an album back then. But for 25th anniversary, they remastered the stuff and throw in a couple more tracks.
Wait, what's going on, Michael? You look really confused.
I don't remember
So,
the
like,
song. I was.
It's like the opener humming. It's
Okay.
really nice, the live version. So it's humming by Portishead, Portishead.
Cool.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I have to look up I have to watch my Instagram story because I posted the song. We're keeping it British.
British.
I'm
That
doing
is it.
Careful by Fearful
Let me add
and
it.
MTWN featuring Rico Dan.
Okay.
You ever heard Rico Dan?
No, who the fuck is Rico Dan?
Me neither.
He's a dub and grime artist.
Okay.
Most like the deepest, most like incredible voice I've ever heard.
Ah.
Just always sort of just like yelling funny things. Great dude.
I will go with, let me think. I've been listening to a lot of new music. I've recently become a little monster, which Michael is aware of.
Yes.
Big Lady Gaga fan right now. That being said, I think I'm going to go, okay, so Baby Blue by George Strait. Great song.
I'm a Lady Gaga fan now. My song is Baby Blue by George Strait.
I mean, like,
Good contrast.
I don't want to put on like 8 songs by Lady Gaga. I'll get there eventually. There'll be some Judas or some Bloody Mary on the playlist.
Lady
Nice.
Gaga, the soul introduction.
Yeah, I fucking love Lady Gaga. However, Baby Blue is a beautiful song. It's a little bit sad. I've been on a George Strait kick as well. Been listening to a lot of
That's this like a Japanese new reggae group in the 90s, Fishmans. They also have a song called Baby Blue, I believe.
Fisherman's?
Cool. Fisherman's or Fishmans?
Fishmans.
Fishman's.
Ah.
Put that one on, too.
Fishmans in one word.
So before we get out of here, take the floor, Michael. Let the people know where they can find you. Send some shout outs, whatever it is. The floor is yours.
Okay, shout out Lulu, the other half of Wenjüe Lu. Like without you, I'd be nothing. Without the two of us, Wenjüe Lu would be non-existent. And you can find us at Instagram at Wenjüe Lu. That's like WENJUELU, and the website is the same with the .com behind it. So that's where you can find us. And everyone, as long as you want the unknown, you're a fellow Nitherer, and we're defining Nitherism together. So let's get it. Let's change this world together. Like, don't get boxed in like that. Open yourself up. Look at your ego. Like, be humble. Normalize suffering. Normalize being offended. Know that you can't even choose to born into this nationality. So why are you so insistent and persistent about that geographical border that's arbitrary? So, think as a human being, like, that like love all, but like mean it, don't like fake it.
Nice.
I love that.
There you go.
Thank you so much to everybody for joining us on this episode of the Pair of Kings podcast. Thank you to Michael for joining us. This has been
Thank you guys
amazing.
for having us.
Yeah. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as YouTube at Pair of Kings Pod. YouTube is Pair of Kings Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Remember to follow us on your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and I think we're also on... There's one more that we're on. I'm just forgetting it. Anyway, I'm your host, Saul Thompson. You can find me on Instagram at Saul Thompson. I'm joined this week not only by my wonderful co-host.
I'm Michael Smith. I don't have an Instagram.
And we are joined by Michael Fang of Wenjüe Lu. You can find him on Instagram at CannedJunk, CANNEDJUNK, or Wenjüe Lu, WENJUELU. Anything else, guys, before I take us out?
That's it.
Cool. Yeah. This has been the Pair of Kings podcast, where once a week, every week for the foreseeable future, we're bringing you business as usual, tomfoolery as planned. Have a great Saturday, everybody, if you're listening to this, and have a great, I think this will probably come out on like a Friday if you're watching. We hope to see you again next week. Love you a lot and take care. Bye, everyone.
Peace.
Bye.